In time, I'd just like to remind you the second step of the budget process after tonight is to make sure that you put on your calendars for the referendum, which is on June 13th. And if you would make sure that you vote on June 13th, we would appreciate it. If we could all stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point in time, I would like the Board of Directors to introduce themselves, as well as the Assistant Superintendent and a school attorney. We'll start with Scott.
My name is Scott McLean, Wyndham resident.
I'm Anna Keeney. I'm a Raymond resident. Kate Bricks, Wyndham.
Dawn Dillon, Wyndham.
Pete Hensler, Wyndham.
Marge Cavoni, Wyndham.
Jenny Cummings, Raymond.
Diana Froisland, Raymond.
I'm Don Davis, the Assistant Superintendent from Raymond.
I'm Bill Stockmeyer, the School District Attorney.
And I'm Sandy Prince, Superintendent of Schools. Article 1A is to elect a moderator to preside at this meeting. Are there any nominations from the floor?
I nominate Bill Stockmeyer.
Second.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? I declare nominations are closed at this point in time. I'd like to have us take a vote for the moderator. All those in favor of Bill Stockmeyer to be the moderator, please raise your hand. Any opposition for Bill Stockmeyer to be the moderator? Please raise your hand. I think the majority that you are the moderator. You could come up here, I'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. Do you swear to support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Maine so long as you shall continue to be a citizen thereof and faithfully discharge to the best of your abilities the duties incumbent on you as a moderator of the Regional School Unit 14 budget meeting on May 24, 2017, according to the Constitution and the laws of the state? I do. Have you signed this, Bill? Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. What I'd like to do first is to mention that, well, first, are there any adult non-voters here? Raise your hand. Okay, so I know who you are. So you all have a green voting card to vote, so you should not have a green voting card, so we'll know that you're not voting, in case anyone's worried about that. So we've got that established. Second, I've already sworn in the ballot clerks, so we don't need to interrupt them should anyone else be registering. I'd like to establish the rules of procedure for the meeting. We'll generally follow the rules of the Maine Moderator's Manual as modified by Maine law with a couple of modifications. First, should there be any school officials who may not be residents of the district, we will allow them to answer questions or explain the budget. We will not, if Sandy or if Don are not residents, I can't remember, we'll allow you to speak. We won't have a vote on that unless there's some objection at this time. Any objection to that if they need to answer a question or explain something in the budget? Great. As needed, debate is limited to 2 persons per minute on each article. My intuition is that that won't be a problem tonight. See? Third, there'll be no amendments to amendments, and I will explain that for a minute because a couple of years ago, someone approached me after a meeting and was very concerned that they thought that that rule precluded them from their own amendment to an article. That does not preclude you from your own amendment to the article. It simply means that we won't have 2 amendments up and 3 amendments down without acting on each amendment in turn. So if an amendment is acted upon, at that point in time, the article as amended will then be up for another amendment. So there's no advantage to jumping up and shouting out a number before we get the article on the floor from the board. You will have the opportunity to make your amendment. The majority of the meeting will prevail in any case, nor is there any advantage to who gets to make the first amendment, because ultimately it's the figure that this meeting agrees upon. Does everyone understand that? Great. And then finally, by law, we'll have a written ballot on Article 14, and I'll explain the procedures for that when we get there. Any objection to these rules of procedure? Great. Let me mention the requirements for voting before I turn it over to Diana Freusland for an explanation of the budget. The requirements to be recognized to speak. Please use the microphone in front to speak. We really won't be able to hear you in this large room unless you do. This doesn't apply to motions or seconds, but if you wish to speak, please use the microphone. Please state your name and the town you're from. My suggestion is you first state what it is you wish to do or why it is you're speaking, such as, I favor the article because, I'm against the article because. If you wish to amend the article, just do that, because we need a second, but I will recognize you to explain your amendment after we have a second. By proceeding that way, the meeting has a clear understanding of whether you're speaking for or against, and it might come as a surprise to you, but I've been in a lot of these meetings, and it takes several minutes before the crowd knows actually whether you're speaking for or against the article. So just to make it easier for you, say whether you're speaking in favor or against, and then tell us why. That's just a suggestion. All remarks need to be relevant to the motion on the floor. We don't allow speeches. Questions should go through me. This is not your opportunity to cross-examine anyone on the stage. The rest of the meeting isn't really interested in that. That's why questions go through the moderator, to just have some control of that. I'd like to have debate alternate between those for and against, if you would regulate yourselves in that regard. Again, we don't have a huge number of people here tonight, so I don't expect that to be a problem. No one may speak a second time on a motion unless everyone else has had an opportunity to speak first. And finally, if you believe debate has gone on long enough and you wish to ask for debate to be cut off, it is your prerogative to make a motion, and that motion is called moving the previous question. You say, I move the previous question when I recognize you. If that's seconded and enacted by a 2/3 vote, that will cut off debate if you think that has gone on long enough. Again, I don't anticipate a problem here tonight. This time, I'd like to recognize Diana Freusland, who's going to provide us with an overview of the budget before we move to the articles.
Good evening, and thank you very much for coming. The school board is proposing a budget of $44,799,277. This is an increase of $1.7 million from last year, or a 3.98% increase. We want to show you how our budget is broken down. We have the following 11 cost center categories, which equate to Articles 1 through 11 that you'll be voting on in just a moment. And in our budget, on the revenue side of our budget, this pie chart explains where the money comes from. The biggest portion of our budget comes from the local EPS contribution, which is a little over 47%. The next category is our state subsidy that we receive at 32%, which has decreased from last year. Last year it was at 35%. And the third largest category is the local additional funds at 16%, which has increased from last year by 5%. The next pie chart shows again those 11 cost center categories to show how we allocate that money in our budget. And the percent that goes to students directly is 67%. And if you'll notice on the pie chart, that would be the regular instruction, the special education piece, career and technical education, student and staff support, and all other instruction. So this shows, again, how our funds are allocated those in the 11 cost centers that you'll be voting on. As in any budget, we have our share of challenges every year. We have fixed overhead costs that increase yearly. These would be our human resources and our facilities maintenance, which includes also natural gas and electricity. These have increased approximately $2.7 million per year. And also, our biggest challenge that we have faced this year is recent legislation. Each year we have been asked to contribute a greater portion to the Maine teacher's retirement. In total, that's $839,000, which is up $150,000 over last year. And one of the biggest impacts on our budget this year is the governor's proposed budget, which includes 48 changes to the EPS funding formula, also the removal of funding for system administration, which means we needed to budget $738,000 to cover those expenses, even though those aren't firm yet. We don't know if that's actually going to be passed, but we have to include it in our budget. So in our budget, because of these challenges, we will be receiving less money from the state than last year. So for fiscal year 2017, we received a little over $15 million, and for fiscal year 2018, we are slated to receive $14.5 million. So that means we are expected to lose about $816,000, or a 5.5% decrease. So essentially, the state of Maine has been flat funding education. And when that happens, the shift in the state subsidy, that means that is going to require higher local property taxes. And as I said earlier, the local additional funding that we've had since last year, it was 11% of our budget last year, and this year it's 16% of our budget. And even though we have faced all these challenges, we feel that RSU 14 is providing a good value to our taxpayers. Our average per pupil cost is $12,574. We're actually slightly below the state average, and we feel that we have done a good job, even despite all of our challenges, to bring in a good value for the taxpayers. And as you can see, since consolidation, these are our budgets since first year of consolidation, 2009 and 10, RSU's average budget increase for those years has only been 1.62%, which we're very proud of. We've worked very hard and we've deliberated very long over this budget. It was a very difficult budget year, and we are hoping that you will support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. As I mentioned, you'll be using your green color-coded cards for voting purposes. I'll ask you to raise your card and say aye or nay as the case may be. I find it helpful for people that don't come every year if I just make the following brief explanation. I'll be reading from the warrant, which is in your materials. And like every budget, there's an expenditure side and a revenue side and a total, right? So far, so good. The expenditure side are the 11 cost centers that Diana presented, and those are the first 11 articles. So those will act first on the expenditure side of the budget. Might not surprise you that if you had a calculator and you added up those 11 articles, they would equal the total budget, and the total budget is in Article 15. Now, expenditures are one side of the budget. The revenues are the other side, and Diana showed you the pie chart with the different revenue sources. You might or might not be surprised to know that the revenue articles, Articles 12, 13, and 14, actually do not add up to the total. And the reason they don't is by law, you only act on the state subsidy and the local tax dollar revenues for the budget. All those other miscellaneous revenues are certainly part of the budget, but they're not presented in these articles. I often get asked, why don't the revenue side add up to the total? It does. It's simply that this meeting doesn't act on those miscellaneous revenues, only on the tax dollars and the state subsidy. So 1 through 11 is the expenditure, 12, 13, and 14 are the revenues, 15 is the total, and then we have some miscellaneous articles following that. So that's the order we're going to proceed in. I'll read each article, board member will move it to get it on the floor, and then it will be open for discussion. Article 1, to see what sum the regional school unit would be authorized to expend for regular instruction. Regional School Unit Board recommends $17,625,284.69. Do I have a motion on Article 1?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Article 1 is on the floor. Regular instruction. Any discussion or debate of Article 1? I always wait a little longer for the first one. Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 1 carries. Article 2, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for special education. School Board recommends $7,184,168.79. Do I have a motion?
I move the article as written.
Is there a second?
Sec-
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Article 2 is on the floor, special education. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please raise your cards and say aye. Thank you. All opposed, please raise your cards and say nay. Thank you. Article 2 carries. So I'm going to start to move quickly simply because it looks like this is not a contentious meeting, but at any point in time, don't let me pass you by. If you need to speak or want to speak, just raise your hand and I will recognize you. All right? Article 3, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for career and technical education. School Board recommends $407,180.37. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 3 is on the floor. Any discussion? Great. All in favor, please raise your cards.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Article carries. Article 4, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for other instruction. School Board recommends $937,241.12. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. All in favor, raise your cards and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards and say nay. Thank you. Article 4 carries. Article 5, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for student and staff support. School Board recommends $4,186,564.44. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 5 carries. Article 6, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for system administration. School Board recommends $1,159,293.86. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 6 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 6 carries. Article 7, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for school administration. School Board recommends $2,631,036.04. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 7 is on the floor for any discussion. This is school administration. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 7 carries. Article 8, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for transportation and buses. School Board recommends $2,285,786.57. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 8, transportation and buses, is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 8 carries. Article 9, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for facilities maintenance. School Board recommends $5,441,073.04. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 9 is on the floor, facilities maintenance. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 9 carries. Article 10, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for debt service and other commitments. School Board recommends $2,586,647.59. Is there a motion and a second for Article 10?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 10 is on the floor. Any discussion? Debt service and other commitments. Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 10 carries. Article 11, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for all other expenditures. School Board recommends $355,000. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 11 is on the floor for discussion. All other expenditures. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 11 carries. So that was the expenditure side of the budget. Now we'll address the articles for state subsidy and local tax dollars. Article 12 is the article that includes state subsidy. You can see the amount under the lower section where it says total raised, the amount to be raised from each town. At the top, you see the total appropriation, which is the sum of the state subsidy and the property tax share for each town. To know the amount of the state subsidy, you actually would have to subtract the bottom numbers from the top numbers. This is the form that the state requires for this article to appear. That's why it appears that way. It looks like you get something like $14.5 million in state subsidy by doing the subtraction. I'll read the article and ask for a motion in a second. To see what sum the regional school unit will appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and to see what sum the regional school unit will raise and assess as each municipality's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes Title 28, Section 15688. The total appropriated amount recommended is $35,955,337.43. The total sum to be raised to qualify for all that state subsidy is $21,395,906.17, and you can see the amount for each town adding up to that total amount I just read. Is there a motion on Article 12?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 12 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 12 carries. Article 13 is the raising of tax dollars for debt service previously approved by the voters. I will read the article. To see what sum the regional school unit will raise and appropriate for the annual payments on debt service previously approved by the regional school unit voters for non-state funded school construction projects, non-state funded portions of school construction projects, and minor capital projects, in addition to the funds appropriated as the local share of the regional school unit's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12. School Board recommends $481,375. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 13, raising funds for previously approved local debt service is on the floor for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please raise your cards and say aye.
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 Thank you. All opposed, please raise your cards and say nay. Article 13 carries. Article 14 will require a written ballot. I will give you your instructions for that when we get to the time. This is the additional local funds, which completes the revenue portion that we're voting on tonight. I will read the article. To see what sum the regional school unit will raise and appropriate in additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes Title 28, Section 15690, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model as set forth below, as required to fund the budget recommended by the school board. Regional School Unit Board recommends $7,209,264.08. Is there a motion on Article 14?
I move the article as written.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. You'll see, those of you with the warrant, you'll see a note with the recommended amount, and a statement of reasons for why the EPS model is exceeded. That's not part of the article, so I haven't read it. You're welcome to read that. Is there any discussion on Article 14? Okay. So we're going to proceed by a written ballot. If the ballot box is it quite ready? Okay. So you should have a pink voting card that says Article 14, and it says yes and no. And is it Linda? Linda, do you want them to check yes or no, or do you want them to rip it in half and cast? Well, let's all do it the same way. So okay, so indicate with a check or an X whether you're voting yes or no. And then you can come forward and drop your ballot in the gray ballot box there. Okay, has anyone not had a chance to vote? Wave your hands, jump and holler if you haven't had a chance to vote. Looks like everyone's voted, so we'll declare the voting ballot box closed, and you may count the ballots. We have a few more articles after this one, so I just ask you to stand by. Normally, they whisper it to me so I can hold it all in suspense until I declare it, but 28 yes and 2 no. Took away the high point of the evening. That's fine. So Article 14 carries. Article 15, that's the summary of everything you've just done before, so that is the total school budget. I will read the article. To see what sum the regional school unit will authorize the regional school unit board to expend for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30, 2018, from the regional school unit's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, non-state funded school construction projects, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20A, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of schools. School Board recommends $44,799,276.51. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 15 is on the floor. Any discussion? Total school budget? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 15 carries. Article 16, these are an authorization for other grants, not part of the regular school operating budget. Shall the Regional School Unit Board be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated? Is there a motion and a second?
I move that article as written.
Second.
Article 16 is on the floor. Any discussion? We'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 16 carries. Article 17 is adult education. I'll read the article. To see if Regional School Unit Number 14 will appropriate $630,164.87 for adult education and raise $295,086.51 as the local share, with authorization to expend any additional incidental or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for the well-being of the adult education program. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 17, adult education, is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 17 carries. Article 18 is to authorize a transfer to an expenditure from the Capital Reserve Fund, and I will read the article. Shall the Regional School Unit Board be authorized to transfer $675,000 from unexpended balances at the end of the 2016-17 fiscal year to the School Capital Reserve Fund, and to expend $675,000 from the reserve fund for the following purposes, in addition to the amounts the voters have previously authorized to be expended from the School Capital Reserve Fund for this or other projects. So that's the article. It's a transfer and expenditure authorization of an additional $675,000. There's a detail below, and you can see that, maybe for our listeners, I'll read it. $500,000 for roof repairs for Jordan Small Middle School and Raymond Elementary School. An estimated $75,000 for site work at Raymond Elementary School. An estimated $100,000 for site work at Wyndham Primary School, for a total of $675,000. Is there a motion and a second on Article 18?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 18 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 18 carries. Article 19 provides for giving the board authority to make decisions with regard to disposition should there be any additional state subsidy. The legislature not yet having finalized the amounts it is given to the school board for purposes of preparing the budget. I'll read the article and ask for a motion and a second. In the event that Regional School Unit Number 14 receives more state education subsidy than the amount included in its budget, shall the school board be authorized to use all or part of the additional state subsidy to increase expenditures for school purposes in cost center categories approved by the school board, increase the allocation of finances in a reserve fund approved by the school board, and/or to decrease the local cost share expectation as defined in Title 20A, Section 15671-A1B for local property taxpayers for funding public education as approved by the school board. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Okay. Article 19 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, please say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 19 carries. Now, before we adjourn by unanimous consent, I just want to again remind people the vote, the validation vote for referendum on what the action just taken at this meeting will be June 13, is that correct? Budget validation vote at your local voting locations in your respective towns. That finalizes the business of this meeting, and I will adjourn us by unanimous consent unless there's an objection. No objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.